All right, so this is part two of making the Brick Breaker game. On part one, we left on making the message bounce. We're gonna now tell the program exactly what it needs to do when it does receive the message bounce. So first thing, go to motion. When you go to motion, go to point and direction. So I'm gonna go to point and direction. I'm gonna put it underneath where it says when I receive bounce. And we're not going to tell it to go 90 degrees. We're actually going to use some math. In this case, go to operators and we're going to do subtraction. Now, what I'm going to subtract is I'm going to do 180 and think angles. In this case, 180 degrees. And I'm going to subtract the direction that it's in. So, for example, this is what I mean. If you go here and go to click on the eye under information, this ball has an angle. If I press start, notice it has an angle. I can switch this angle around. So depending on what angle it's at, so if it's at 145, the program is saying I'm going to do 180 minus 45, which is 135 degrees, which means it should be pointing downward. And if I hit go, notice it points downward. So every time the ball goes at a certain angle, we're going to subtract 180 from it. That's what it's doing. And from there, we're going to tell it to move 10 steps every time we do this operation. Now that you've done that part, we're now going to test it. And if we hit the green flag, notice as I move the paddle, it's bouncing off the paddle. However, if you take the paddle away, notice that when it hits the bottom of the screen, it's still bouncing. And we don't want that because in the Brick Breaker game, or like in any game, when the user does something incorrectly, the game should be over. So we need to program something to say, hey, when the ball touches the bottom of the floor, if it misses the paddle, the game needs to be over. In this case, we're going to do a new object or a new sprite. So click over where it says paint new sprite, and I'm going to go to convert to vector. I'm going to click on the text box and I'm going to write something to tell the user that they lost. So I'm going to put game over, and since you guys love to tease people, we'll do loser. But we're going to encourage them to keep playing the game. So game over, loser, try again. And I'm going to make this larger by expanding this, and I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle. And when you move this around, notice it changes where the screen is to the left side. So it changes where the person is going to see this on the screen. I want to put it somewhere in the middle. If you want it on the side, that's fine. I'm just showing you how you can move that around. All right, so I did this object of game over loser. Now we need to program when this sign is going to show. So let's go back to script. I don't want the game over to show when this game starts. So instead, I'm going to go under events. And remember, the user starts the game by the green flag. And I'm going to go to looks and I'm going to hide it when the game starts. That means that when the game starts, this sign is not going to show. So now that we've told Scratch or this game what to do when the game starts, which is not to show the game over, we need to tell Scratch or the game what to do or when to show game over loser. So in this case, we need to now go back to the ball. And before writing the next program, let's think about this. This game is over when the ball is below the paddle. So if we think math and we think coordinate planes, right now the paddle's positioned at negative 160. So the ball needs to go below negative 160. So I'm going to now grab an if statement. So go to controls And these are if then statement, and I'm going to put it right underneath the if on edge. Or actually, you should actually have up to this part. So I'm going to get if statement, and I'm going to put right underneath where it says if on edge. And then I'm going to actually go to my operators and use some math. And I'm going to use the less than. And I'm going to go to motions and grab the Y position because I want to deal with the Y axis. And I'm going to write when the ball is below negative 160. And let's see where the paddle is. We put the paddle at negative 160. So let's do 160. And then we're going to do another message. So let's go to control, or not control, events, broadcast, and put that in the middle. And it's going to be a new message. We're going to call it game over. Since we're giving a new message, the game doesn't know what game over means. So we need to tell the game what does actually the message game over actually do, or what should it do. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the game over object, and I'm going to go to stay on events. When I receive game over message, I'm going to show this object. Remember, when I say this object, I'm talking about the message game over, loser, try again. I'm going to show that. However, just like any game, for instance, with football, if a lot of you play Madden, if the football player goes out of bounds, the play should be over. So if this person loses the game should be over. So I'm going to go to control, and I'm going to use stop all. That means the game should completely stop. Let's test it. Let's click on the green sign. Notice the game over message is gone. Let's lose on purpose. And notice the game is not over. It's not working. And this happens sometimes with programming. Sometimes we need to fix it. So let's go back to the ball. And perhaps this is way too low. So let's try to put 140 instead. And let's see what happens if it works now. Oh, and there it is. It says game over. Let's try it again. Let's test it many times. So it's working. It's bouncing. Now let me lose on purpose. And there it is. Lost again. So the program is working as should. So right now we have the ball is working, the paddle is working, and now we're going to do our next. Now, thinking that this is a game, we need to keep score. Just like any video games, you always want to know how you're doing. So we're going to do that and do a scoreboard. To do a scoreboard, we're going to now go to more blocks, and we're going, or actually not more blocks, but data, and we're going to make a variable. If you remember in math, variable means an unknown quantity or an unknown number. So in this case, we don't know what the score will be, so that's why they're calling it a variable. And I'm going to call it score. And we're going to make sure it's for all sprite, or actually let's make sure that this is clicked. Make a new variable, score, hit OK. And if you notice on the top left-hand corner, now we have a scoreboard. Now that we have this scoreboard, we need to make a new object to let the player know, hey, if you scored this many points, you win. So let's make a new object. And I'm going to type here, you win. However, let's make this a different color. So we'll make this green. And I'm going to change the font. And I'm going to put exclamation mark. And let's make this nice and large. So you win. All right. Now that we have that object of you win, Again, just like with the game over, we don't want you win to be the first message that pops up when the game starts. So just like how I did it before, I'm going to go to events. When you click the green button, looks, I want to hide this. Then I want to go into data and I want the score to be 0. So that means every time the game starts all over, the score will be 0, just like any other video game. We're going to go then to control, and we're going to wait until the score is, and we'll do, or my game is going to be up to 5 points. If you want to do 10 or more, that's up to you. So I'm going to wait until the score is 5. So that means that after 5 blocks, the person wins. And after he scores 5 blocks, I'm going to show the you win object. And then after he wins, I want the game to stop. So then I'm going to go to control and I'm going to say stop all. That keeps the game from going on. All right, so now we have 4 objects. If you notice, I have the paddle, the soccer ball, I have the game over, and let's rename this object to game over. And I have the you win. Let me call this win. So all we need that it's left are the blocks. Part 3 of the video will go over how to complete the video game with the blocks.